Beyond the gates, spoilers tease that Vanessa stands torn between two men, caught in a dangerous triangle that is far more than a matter of the heart. At first glance, it seems like the familiar crossroads of romance, a woman weighing the devotion of one man against the thrill of another. Yet beneath the surface, each choice carries consequences that ripple into betrayal, crime, and survival itself. Vanessa's decision to leave Doug and follow Joey to Puerto Rico marks the first turning point, a choice that is not just about passion but about stepping into a world she barely understands. Doug is left behind, blindsided, with nothing but the bitter realization that the woman he built his plans around has abandoned him at the moment he needed her most. For Doug, it feels like the collapse of an entire strategy, a failed gamble in the game of life that he once believed he could win. When Jacob's message reaches Vanessa, the illusion of paradise begins to fracture. News that Doug has been arrested hits her like a physical blow, and for a moment, her instincts scream at her to return. She imagines him behind bars, stripped of dignity, staring out at a world that has turned its back. Her guilt gnaws at her, because she knows that in some way, her absence is part of his downfall. But Joey, ever the manipulator, intercepts her panic with cold precision. His words cut sharp. She cannot straddle the line any longer. She must choose. Either she continues with him, body and soul, or she goes back to Doug and severs everything she has with Joey. He frames it not as a plea but as an ultimatum, forcing her into a corner where the path back to Doug demands a sacrifice she isn't ready to make. The cruelty lies in his calculation. Joey is not only asking for loyalty but demanding that Vanessa watch Doug's life unravel while she remains at Joey's side, complicit in the destruction. This is exactly what Joey wanted all along. Every detail unfolds like a chessboard he has carefully arranged. His intent is not merely to take Vanessa for himself, but to ensure Doug sees her standing with his enemy. The humiliation is deliberate, the pain crafted to be as personal as possible. Doug, who once imagined whisking Vanessa away on travels that would bind them closer together, is instead left to confront the emptiness of a promise unfulfilled. In one of his most vulnerable confessions, he compares his life to a chess match where every move has been a calculated risk. Vanessa, in his mind, was the queen he gambled on, the piece he believed could carry him to victory. But now, as the pieces topple and the board is overturned, Doug faces the reality that he may have wagered everything only to be left with nothing. The haunting question remains whether he has another strategy tucked away, perhaps involving his ally Randy, a shadow figure who might yet provide a way to escape the trap. Bill, observing from the periphery, becomes an uneasy witness to the duplicity. He sees Vanessa sharing a quiet dinner with Doug, her face composed in affection, her gestures convincing enough to fool an unsuspecting man. But only moments later, she is by Joey's side, her mask shifting effortlessly, as though her loyalty is a costume she can change at will. Bill, a man who has lived long enough to know how deception eats away at the soul, confronts her with a warning. His words are not loud but heavy with weight. She is treading on dangerous ground, and the chaos that is coming will not spare her. The unease in his tone suggests he knows more than he says, that Joey's plan is darker than Vanessa realizes, and that both she and Doug are pawns in a scheme designed to end with ruin. The warning lingers in Vanessa's mind, yet instead of pulling her back, it unsettles her, because it forces her to acknowledge that others can see the cracks in the mask she tries so hard to maintain. Bill himself carries his own burdens. In the midst of this unfolding storm, he finds time to meet with his two daughters, a meeting colored by the echoes of his past mistakes. Haley, ever perceptive, urges him to keep Danny away, sensing that the atmosphere surrounding Bill is toxic and unsafe. Bill, though reluctant, respects her insight, choosing to distance Danny rather than risk exposing her to the turmoil he knows is coming. Naomi too lends her support, agreeing that peace can only be preserved by limiting entanglements. These small choices highlight a man who has learned to shield those he loves from the chaos he cannot always prevent in himself. His subplot mirrors the central theme, the choices we make to protect or betray, the sacrifices we endure in the name of survival. The revelation of Joey's true motive adds another layer of treachery. His proposal to Vanessa, dressed in the guise of love, is nothing more than a mask for a larger scheme. He does not seek her hand to honor affection but to legitimize his money laundering operation through her real estate company. Marriage, in his design, is not the union of two souls but the binding contract that transforms dirty cash into untouchable assets. Doug, in his foresight, once pleaded with Vanessa to step away from her business, sensing the dangers that lurked around her involvement. Yet instead of retreating, she doubled down, aligning herself further with Joey's world. Doug's fears proved justified, not just because of the risk to her reputation but because her complicity entangles her in Joey's crimes. And still, Vanessa seems less concerned for Doug's well-being and more eager to embrace the darker promises Joey whispers, helping him orchestrate Doug's downfall with chilling indifference. Nicole enters as a voice of reason, a character whose wounds mirror the ones Vanessa is carving into her own life. Having endured betrayal in her marriage to Ted, Nicole speaks not with bitterness but with hard-earned clarity. She warns Vanessa that betrayal, no matter how thrilling in the moment, carries a cost that is far heavier than it seems. Her words are a lifeline, urging Vanessa to step back before she falls into the same abyss. Yet, caught between the seductive pull of Joey and the fading loyalty to Doug, Vanessa struggles to absorb the lesson. Nicole's truth stirs unease in her, but the momentum of her choices pulls her toward Joey nonetheless. The path she chooses begins to crystallize, and though doubt flickers in her eyes, her actions betray where her allegiance lies. The brilliance of Joey's manipulation is not in his overt power but in the way he threads every element together. He leverages Doug's arrest not just as a legal blow but as a psychological weapon. He uses his proposal as both bait and trap, offering Vanessa the appearance of stability while tightening the noose around her freedom. He allows Bill's warnings to hang in the air, knowing that doubt itself can destabilize. Even Randy, the uncertain wild card, becomes a piece Joey anticipates, calculating how Doug might attempt an alliance. Joey's ability to see the board several moves ahead positions him not just as an antagonist but as a strategist whose cruelty is matched only by his foresight. For Doug, every moment in captivity forces reflection. His words about life being like chess resurface, the metaphor sharpening in the solitude of his cell. He replays every decision, trusting Vanessa, planning the trip, ignoring the subtle signs of betrayal. He wonders if Randy, his potential contingency, can still maneuver on the outside to counter Joey's plans. But trust itself has become unstable. If Vanessa could abandon him so quickly, can Randy be relied upon? The uncertainty gnaws at him, making the notion of escape less about strategy and more about faith in someone who may or may not still stand by him. His despair deepens when he imagines Vanessa at Joey's side, not just absent but actively complicit, smiling while he rots away. Vanessa, meanwhile, becomes increasingly haunted by contradictions. Joey's touch thrills her, but Jacob's message about Doug lingers in the back of her mind like a ghost that won't leave. She tells herself that Joey is offering her a future, that Doug's life is a sinking ship she was wise to abandon. Yet in quiet moments, when Joey is distracted, she recalls the way Doug once looked at her, the way he spoke of their travels, the way he placed his hopes on her as if she were more than a pawn. Those memories collide with Joey's harsh ultimatum, the threat of losing him if she even considers returning to Doug. It is in those moments of quiet torment that Vanessa realizes she is no longer free. Her choices are her own, yes, but every path has been narrowed, funneled by Joey's manipulations into a corridor where both exits lead to suffering. The story stretches taut, each character pulling against the web Joey has woven. Bill's warnings intensify as he notices Vanessa sinking deeper. Nicole's advice becomes more urgent, her voice one of the few that still carries honesty in a world of deception. Doug clings to the possibility of Randy, though each day erodes his confidence. And Joey, ever calm, ever calculating, pushes forward with the confidence of a man who believes the game is already won. The tension lies not in whether Vanessa will make a choice, but in whether she understands the true cost of the path she is already walking. Under the weight of Joey's schemes, the story edges into a darker and more unpredictable territory. Doug's arrest is not just a stumbling block in his life but a carefully crafted trap that exposes every weakness he has. In the confines of a cell, stripped of control, He replays his choices and feels the sting of betrayal more acutely than the cold air around him. Yet Doug is not a man without resilience. His mention of life being like a chess game was not only a metaphor for loss but also for strategy. Even in defeat, he searches for hidden moves, for the possibility of using Randy as a final gambit to turn the board. Randy is less a friend than a shadow ally, someone Doug hopes can maneuver where he cannot. But the risk lies in trust. If Vanessa could pivot so easily, if Joey could rewrite the rules of loyalty, how reliable is Randy in a world where betrayal seems inevitable? Vanessa becomes entangled in contradictions that grow heavier by the day. Outwardly, she accepts Joey's presence, his proposal, his grand plans dressed in glittering promises. She smiles at dinners, slips into the role he designs for her, and lets herself be seen as his partner. But beneath that surface, doubt blooms like a Bruce Jacobs message that Doug has been captured lingers in her conscience, a whisper reminding her of unfinished ties. Joey's insistence that she commit fully to him becomes suffocating, especially when framed as a demand rather than a choice. The more Joey tries to control her, the more Vanessa senses that she has surrendered not just her marriage but her freedom. She tells herself that aligning with Joey is survival, that his wealth and power will protect her. She wonders whether she is merely another piece in his empire, to be used and discarded once her utility ends. Joey's grand design unfolds with cold precision. His proposal to Vanessa becomes the linchpin of his plan to launder money through her real estate business, a way to wrap his crimes in legality. On the surface, it looks like devotion, a man solidifying his bond with the woman he adores. But those who see deeper know better. Bill, for one, has lived long enough to recognize false faces, and he senses Joey's motives the moment he sees the strings being pulled. His warnings to Vanessa grow sharper, yet they are met with her defensive silence. It is easier for her to ignore him than to admit she is caught in something larger than herself. Joey, meanwhile, is unfazed by Bill's observations. If anything, he anticipates them, confident that Bill lacks the power to dismantle his strategy. Joey does not merely play for love or money, he plays for domination, seeking to destroy Doug so completely that his rival has nothing left to cling to. Bill's subplot with his daughters gains weight as the chaos intensifies. Haley's earlier insistence that Danny stay away proves to be a wise call, sparing her from entanglement in a spiral that only grows more dangerous. Naomi's quiet agreement reinforces the wisdom of distance. Yet Bill cannot escape the feeling that his choices are rippling outward in ways he cannot control. He carries a guilt of omission watching Vanessa drift toward ruin, knowing what Joey is capable of, and yet being unable to stop it. His encounters with Vanessa become increasingly tense, his warnings shifting from concern to urgency. Each time, he sees in her eyes the conflict between self-preservation and temptation, but each time, Joey's grip appears stronger. Bill recognizes the pattern because he has lived through it himself, knowing the price of ignoring the voice that tells you to walk away. Doug's potential salvation rests with Randy, though that alliance is uncertain. The hints of a contingency plan suggest Doug foresaw the possibility of betrayal, though whether Randy can or will act remains in question. Randy's role looms like a shadow figure on the edge of the story, silent, watching, perhaps waiting for the right moment to intervene. If Doug has any hope of escape, it will come not through direct confrontation but through Randy's ability to exploit the gaps Joey has overlooked. Yet Joey rarely overlooks anything, and his habit of anticipating several moves ahead suggests even Randy's involvement may have been accounted for. The suspense lies in whether Randy is an unaccounted variable, a piece Joey failed to calculate, or just another pawn already trapped in Joey's design. Nicole's presence continues to serve as a mirror for Vanessa, a reminder of what betrayal leads to. Her experience with Dead left scars, but it also gave her clarity. She speaks plainly, urging Vanessa to consider the long-term consequences of her actions. Nicole warns that the rush of forbidden passion fades, but the wreckage it leaves lasts a lifetime. Vanessa listens but does not commit to change, torn between the thrill Joey provides and the quiet stability Doug once offered. Nicole's frustration grows because she sees in Vanessa the same blindness that once consumed her. Yet she persists, believing that even if Vanessa ignores her words now, The seed of doubt will take root and eventually bloom into realization. Nicole's role is not to save Vanessa outright but to offer the map she herself once ignored. The true danger lies in Joey's growing obsession with control. His manipulation of Vanessa is only one piece of a broader ambition. He delights not only in defeating Doug but in ensuring Doug witnesses his own destruction. For Joey, it is not enough to win. He must watch his rival lose everything: his freedom, his wife, his dignity. This obsession reveals cracks in Joey's otherwise perfect calculation. The more he seeks to orchestrate humiliation, the more he risks overextending himself, exposing vulnerabilities that Randy or Bill might exploit. His arrogance blinds him to the possibility that Vanessa, despite her compliance, still harbors doubts. He assumes her loyalty is secured, but her silence hides more turmoil than he realizes. Vanessa's dilemma sharpens as Joey presses her toward a marriage that feels more like a transaction than a union. She senses the weight of what she is about to step into, the merging of her life with his empire of crime. At times, she envisions a future where Doug is erased from her world entirely, where her days are filled with the luxuries Joey promises. Yet in the quietest hours, she feels the hollow echo of that vision. Joey offers her power, wealth, and security, but not love in the way Doug once did. Her memories of Doug are fractured, tinged with guilt and betrayal, but they remain, stubborn and haunting. The longer she hesitates, the more dangerous her position becomes, because Joey is not a man who tolerates uncertainty. Her indecision, if it lingers, could turn his charm into cruelty. Bill's role becomes increasingly precarious. His knowledge of Joey's plans and his open warnings to Vanessa place him at risk of becoming a target himself. Joey, ever watchful, likely sees Bill as an obstacle to be neutralized. Whether through manipulation, intimidation, or something darker, Joey's next move may involve silencing the one man who refuses to look away. Bill's daughters, Haley and Naomi, may also be pulled further into the web despite his efforts to shield them. In trying to protect them, Bill may have already signaled to Joey where his vulnerabilities lie, giving the strategist yet another piece to manipulate. The tension builds not only around Doug's fate but around whether Bill can survive his role as a reluctant guardian. As the story advances, the clash of motives sharpens. Doug seeks survival, clinging to the hope of Randy's intervention. Vanessa seeks clarity, caught between temptation and conscience. Bill seeks to protect, even as he edges closer to danger. Nicole seeks redemption by guiding Vanessa away from repeating her mistakes. And Joey, at the center of it all, seeks domination, determined to destroy Doug and bind Vanessa to him forever. Each character moves along a collision course shaped by choices that cannot be undone. The looming question is not only whether Doug can escape or whether Vanessa will remain with Joey, but what the cost will be for each of them when the final pieces fall into place. If Randy intervenes, it could unravel Joey's entire plan, but if Joey has already accounted for him, Doug's fate may be sealed. If Vanessa chooses Joey fully, she becomes complicit in his crimes, bound not by love but by fear and necessity. If she hesitates, Joey's wrath could turn against her, making her yet another casualty in his relentless pursuit of control. Bill's survival hangs on whether he can remain one step ahead, and Nicole's voice may yet echo in Vanessa's conscience when the choice becomes unavoidable. The endgame feels inevitable, yet the path to it remains uncertain. Every decision carries weight. Every silence carries consequence. The tension lies not in whether destruction will come but in who, if anyone, will emerge from it unbroken. In the spiral that has closed around them all, the final threads of the story begin to reveal their shape. Doug, worn down but not broken, senses that his life depends on one last calculated risk. His talk of chess becomes prophecy. The game is not over until the king falls. He knows Joey is orchestrating his destruction, knows Vanessa has slipped from his side, yet he clings to the thought that one piece remains unplayed. Randy. Whether Randy will move for him or betray him remains the question that gnaws at Doug as each day passes in confinement. The silence of waiting is worse than the bars themselves, for it allows imagination to conjure images of Vanessa smiling at Joey's side, of his world erased while Joey celebrates. The thought nearly destroys him, yet it also ignites his final resolve. If escape comes, it will not be for revenge alone, but to reclaim the dignity Joey tried to strip away. Vanessa's torment sharpens as Joey's control grows more suffocating. What began as thrilling rebellion has transformed into a cage lined with velvet. The proposal that once glittered like a promise now feels like a chain around her future. She tells herself she chose Joey for survival, for security, yet his demands leave no room for her own will. Each time he reminds her that she cannot return to Doug without losing him, she feels the weight of his possessiveness pressing down harder. Doubt begins to take root, watered by Nicole's warnings and Bill's steady cautions. She remembers Nicole's words that betrayal only leads to ruin, and she wonders if she has been sleepwalking into a trap of her own making. The vision of herself as Joey's wife, bound not by love but by complicity in his crimes, grows unbearable. And yet breaking away feels nearly impossible, for Joey watches her too closely. His eyes sharp enough to detect hesitation, his hand firm enough to punish it. Bill finds himself standing closer to the fire than he ever intended. His warnings to Vanessa have been met with deflection, but he knows she has heard him, even if she pretends otherwise. What unsettles him most is Joey's awareness. He suspects Joey has already marked him as a liability, a man who sees too much. His daughters remain his anchor. Haley's foresight in keeping Danny away proves wise, yet Bill knows Joey is the kind of man who turns family into leverage if pressed. Naomi's quiet support gives him strength, but it also reminds him of the stakes. To protect them, he may need to step directly into Joey's path, to risk himself in ways that leave no guarantee of survival. Bill's past mistakes weigh on him, but in this moment, he sees the chance to do something right, to shield not only his daughters but perhaps Vanessa too, if she can still be pulled back from the brink. Nicole's presence becomes more vital as Vanessa's indecision intensifies. She does not lecture but speaks with the clarity of someone who has lived through the aftermath of betrayal. She reminds Vanessa that the high of rebellion is fleeting, that the hollow ache lasts far longer. Nicole knows Joey's type, men who see women as assets, not partners. She warns that once Joey no longer needs Vanessa's business for laundering, he will discard her, and worse, he may do so in ways that leave her destroyed. Vanessa resists, caught between guilt and desire, but Nicole's words gnaw at her. In quiet moments, when Joey's voice is absent and Doug's memory resurfaces, she feels the truth pressing in. The road she is on leads only to ruin, no matter how gilded it appears in the moment. Joey, convinced of his victory, begins to reveal more of his ambition. To him, Vanessa's loyalty is already secured, her business already folded into his empire. Doug's arrest is a closed chapter, Bill a nuisance soon to be silenced, Nicole a whisper too weak to matter. His arrogance swells, and with it, his carelessness. He underestimates the lingering conflict in Vanessa's heart, dismisses Randy as irrelevant, and overlooks the quiet resolve building in Doug's confinement. His obsession blinds him to the possibility that the very pieces he believes captured may yet strike back. The end approaches like a storm on the horizon, each character moving toward the inevitable collision. Randy finally makes his move, slipping through the cracks of Joey's empire in a way no one expected. He proves to be the unaccounted piece, the one Joey failed to calculate. Whether through cunning, luck, or loyalty to Doug, Randy manages to stir the machinery of escape, giving Doug the lifeline he so desperately needed. Doug, battered but unbroken, seizes the chance not only to reclaim freedom but to confront the man who tried to erase him. The prospect of facing Joey fills him with dread and purpose in equal measure. He knows this is not simply about winning Vanessa back, for she has already made her choices, but about proving that he will not be crushed. Vanessa stands at her own crossroads as the storm gathers. Joey's demands for marriage grow louder, his grip more suffocating. Nicole's warnings echo, Bill's eyes pierce, and Doug's shadow lingers. She realizes that every step she has taken has narrowed her future into two brutal outcomes: to stand with Joey and become complicit in his crimes, or to turn against him and risk his wrath. The choice is no longer between men but between destruction and survival of her own soul. In the final hours, as Joey's empire begins to crack under pressure, Vanessa faces the reality she can no longer evade. Her mask shatters, and she must decide whether to betray Joey as she once betrayed Doug, or to sink with him into ruin. Bill, drawn into the heart of the conflict, may be forced into confrontation. Whether it comes in words or in blood, his role as a reluctant protector becomes undeniable. His fate depends on whether Joey's arrogance leads him to strike or whether Bill's wisdom allows him to sidestep the blow. His daughters remain his anchor, a reminder of why he cannot give in to fear. Bill may not be able to save everyone, but his choices will echo in whether Vanessa survives the storm or falls to Joey's grip. The final clash is inevitable: Doug's escape against Joey's arrogance, Vanessa's conscience against her complicity, Bill's protection against Joey's power, Nicole's wisdom against Vanessa's denial. The board is set for the end game, and for the first time, Joey is not the only one seeing several moves ahead. The question that hangs in the air is not whether destruction will come at will but who will still be standing when the gates finally close.